Now for global business updates, Rotus Oddiri joins us. Good morning, Rotus.
Good morning, Dr. Abati. Good morning, Ayo. Good morning, Rufai. Good morning to all our viewers out there. We begin, of course, with the big job numbers from the United States from Friday. We know we previewed what the markets were expecting. U.S. job growth continues to be strong. We're coming in at 303,000 jobs against expectations of about 200,000. So beating expectations, I think it was 270,000 was the number we got in February, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. If you look at job growth by sector, the healthcare sector continues to lead the way, 72,300 jobs created there. Public sector work, governments coming in at 71,000. Leisure hospitality actually returning to a figure not seen since pre-pandemic, 49,000 jobs there, and then construction, 39,000. The markets, it's as if the markets didn't know what to do. They kind of dipped a little bit and started to pick up. So it's a choice. It's a choice of two options here. Do you want robust economic growth, seen through the jobs picture? That means corporate earnings will be stronger. Or do you want a weaker jobs number that means the Federal Reserve will pause on those expected rate cuts? So everybody was looking, and even wage growth, I think 0.3% month on month, annual wage growth in the US at 4.1% on an annualized basis. So the labor market in the United States is very strong. And there's a narrative that is actually growing here with respect to immigration, that you're getting more immigrants filling certain positions and their wage demands are not as high. You know what's going on in the U.S. with the border that Trump keeps and Republicans keep talking about. So, the U.S. labor market remains strong. What does this mean for the Federal Reserve now? If wages continue to increase, it means that people are getting more money in their pocket. And if they're getting more money in their pocket, they're spending more, which of course will keep inflation sticky on the high side, which means that the Federal Reserve may not maybe we won't even see those all the rate cuts that are expected, as far as 3 of them are concerned. So the U.S. economy continues to be pretty strong. Neel Kaskari, remember we talked about him with all the Federal Reserve heads that were speaking last week. He made headlines on his hawkish comments with respect to monetary policy, but something else that wasn't quite picked up, it's being picked up now, was his comments on Bitcoin. Now, just to set you up, Kaskari has never been bullish on Bitcoin. He again, in that same interview with P&I, Pensions and Investments, says that Bitcoin has no use case in terms of using it to be able to actually buy anything. Here's what he said.
Yeah, what is that hard cap? I mean, the hard cap, I guess, is 0 for Bitcoin. It could go down to 0. Just replace the words Bitcoin with Beanie Babies. Should the Fed buy Beanie Babies? Because Beanie Babies were a fad for a while, had no actual utility in the economy other than they were a nice toy that some people enjoyed owning and trading. I always ask people, has anybody actually bought anything with Bitcoin? And Bitcoin enthusiasts will say, oh, yes, I bought something. But I'm talking about in mainstream America. When I travel around and I give talks, I always ask the audience, has anybody in this audience ever bought something with Bitcoin? A sandwich, a cell phone, a book, and nobody ever has. It's the only use case that I can come up with, except for the evangelists who contort themselves to try to find use cases. In the real world, the only use cases that I've seen are trying to subvert banking regulations, get around either marijuana banking or illicit activities, et cetera. I don't think subverting banking regulations is a legitimate use case. And until, one other thing I'll say, the Bitcoin bros who are watching this right now are saying, oh, you're a Neanderthal. This is like, you'd say in 1994, nobody ever bought a book online, so Amazon has no future. This is not Amazon in 1994. This is Amazon in 2004. Bitcoin's been around for more than a decade, and more than a decade later, there's still no legitimate use case in a democracy, an advanced democracy. And so how many years do you need to test this out until there's going to be some usefulness other than the Bitcoin bros? It's like a religious revival for some folks. So my skepticism, unfortunately, has only grown.
All right, so we go to Brazil now, and the Supreme Court in Brazil has opened an investigation, a probe into Elon Musk, and particularly X. So here's what's happening. There's some folks I think they call them digital militias. They've been spreading, according to Brazilian authorities, spreading a disinformation campaign against Supreme Court justices in Brazil. Apparently, X, as formerly Twitter, was asked to block those accounts, but Elon Musk, being the free speech absolutist that he calls himself, X did not comply with blocking those accounts. So they've now opened a probe into Musk himself, saying that he's part of it. And the gentleman, the gentleman on the right hand of your screen, that's in the split screen with Elon Musk, that is Supreme Court Justice Alexander de Moraes. And here's a quote from him. He says, "The flagrant conduct of obstruction of Brazilian justice, incitement of crime," that's against those justices, "the public threat of disobedience of court orders," referring to X, "and future lack of cooperation from the platform are facts that disrespect the sovereignty of Brazil." So they say that, look, this is part of something that has been said in the United States. Since Musk took over, you've seen a proliferation of fake news within the realm of allowing everybody to say whatever it is they want. You've seen a lot of accounts that have just been putting out a lot of information there that is just not true. If you take, for example, the terrorist attack that happened in Russia at that theater, there were people on X. I was seeing people saying that the FBI was behind it and the United States was behind it. And these things are allowed to freely just be there. So this investigation was just put out there, and Musk is going to be probed. Boeing, unfortunately, is back in the news. You should see a video of something called an engine cowling, which is like a coating around the turbines for the plane. This is a 737-800. It happened just yesterday. It was a flight leaving from Denver, Colorado to Houston, Texas, using Southwest Airlines, and the cowling comes off, and I think it actually hit one of the wings on the plane. No one was injured. There were no issues. The plane returned back to Denver, Colorado yesterday, but the Aviation Authority has opened an investigation into this, and it's just, unfortunately, yet another bit of bad news for Boeing and these 737 models. Finally, come to Nigeria. Nairametrics held a webinar on CBN policies and how they are impacting the economy. There were a wide range of discussions that happened, but I picked this out because of what I said last week about the mining sector, particularly after the news that Tesla, Elon Musk again, Tesla is investigating or seeking sites in India to build a $2 to $3 billion plant. And I was saying, I gave you my wish list for mining, we haven't heard much about from, the minister and what's been going on. So here is Dr. Bumi Bajumo. She's the Chief Operating Officer, Head of Corporate Banking at EcoBank. In the middle of talking about recapitalization of the banks, she said, okay, where are the banks going to deploy, because we're talking about CBN. So she was saying, where are the banks going to deploy all this capital once they are raised in terms of a bigger bank that can facilitate big ticket transactions? And she said, we need more from the mining sector. Here she is.
It's not about banks alone. Yes, it's good to enhance the capacity of banks. But if you enhance the capacity of banks, where else do you want the banks to deploy their resources they are able to harness because of their capacity enhancement? One sector that we need to look at is the mining sector. That is a sector that is powering a lot of our African nations. Guinea just brought on board the $20 billion Simandou project. DRC is doing that. They are not even content with having the mineral in the ground. They are now plugging themselves into the value chain of the mining so that they can earn better returns.
Well, Rotus, please
so
go ahead.
Essentially, the mining sector, so we essentially need more growth from Nigeria's mining sector in terms of what it is supposed to be contributing to the economy. That is our update for today.
Well, very well said. Thank you very much, Rotus. Very well said by Ms. Bajomo. And this just raises one question for me this morning, Rotus. What is the plan from the ministry or the Minister of Mines and Steel Development? I think, of mining. I think that's something that we need to really look at. When we talk about performances of ministers, the KPIs and the likes, what we've seen is chairing of committees, attending of meetings, but in terms of a clear roadmap as to how to revitalize the mining industry, this is a critical conversation for us to have. And I think that that's something, like Ms. Badgermore mentioned, excellent point there in terms of our focus on mining industry. We've talked about how other African countries have been able to leverage this to shore up their GDP, but unfortunately we haven't yet been able to do so. And even have a proper conversation around an analysis of that industry. What do we have? What amount do we have? What are we able to export? What are what are our gold mines in that sense? So those are some of the conversations that we must have. Now moving on to Boeing. With the challenges that Boeing is facing, despite over 100 years of playing in the aviation space as a big player, you would almost think that it's a sabotage, but it's not. And there have been conversations, even though the MD hasn't come out to give a reason for this recent mishap. But the big question would be, what would happen to their price, the stock price? Would this affect investor confidence? A number of people have said that even from the initial issue, that they've already said to see changes in the cost of share price of Boeing. But would this further affect that, and how will the company begin to regain the confidence of investors? But broadly, it's been said that it shouldn't remove confidence in the aviation sector as a whole, but just for Boeing in itself, and they need to get their acts together. I don't know what's going on there.
Okay, very quickly. First, the issue about Elon Musk and Justice Alexandre de Moraes, Supreme Court Justice of Brazil. The question you ask is that, is the decision by Justice Moraes, is it legally sound? Because Elon Musk has been saying, the decision by the justice is unconstitutional, and that Justice Moraes should either be impeached or he should resign. The thing to note is that in the Brazilian constitution, freedom of speech is not absolute. That is the point that Justice Moraes is making. And that, X cannot use his platform, or Elon Musk directly, for intentional purposes of criminalization. And then using it for disinformation, for misinformation, for the promotion of fake news. This is what it is all about. And his lordship is right, in my view, in insisting that, look, it's the sovereignty of Brazil that is at stake. And that if X continues to allow that platform to be used for purposes of promotion of fake news, they will pay a fine on a daily basis of $19,740 every day. So it's now a conflict between business and the law and the sovereignty of Brazil. But let's see how it plays out, whether Elon Musk is going to carry out his threat that he will not block any accounts and that he will disregard the ruling of the Supreme Court of Brazil. Well, the option that is available to him, which he himself has pointed to, is to close X office in Brazil. Will he go that far? Will he do that? Will it not amount to cost for him? But the lesson here is that free speech absolutists, will be confronted with situations like this where, you will be reminded that, in fact, no right under any constitution is absolute. There are limits to rights. Now, to talk about the US, the non-farm payrolls number. Last Friday, when we discussed this subject, I was quoting Dow Jones. Dow Jones was saying at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time on Friday, we should be expecting 200,000, lower than the 270,000 in February. But as it turned out, we have 303,000. What does it mean? What it means is that the US economy is in very good shape. And all the up and down by the investors and all that, what it means is that the Federal Reserve may not be in a hurry, to tighten, to reduce, to cut rates by June. We expect that maybe it will be much later by July, because, inflation prints are going to come in this week. On Wednesday, we'll have inflation prints from the United States. So additional data will also tell us the direction in which the Federal Reserve may be going. Even the San Francisco Federal Reserve President, who is hawkish. All of them, they can see that the main point here is that there is no hurry in terms of the cutting of rates. But the bigger issue will be China on Friday, that will give us trade figures, and then the central banks of Thailand, Philippines, and New Zealand this week will also be giving us figures. So this is a major inflation week, and we would like to see what the trend is from New Zealand to the Philippines to China. Okay, thank you very much, Rotus.